I was a 32-year-old software engineer, with what I thought was the perfect marriage. Jessica and I had been trying to build our family for over a year without success. We were happy together until her father passed away, and Margaret, my mother-in-law, moved in with us. That was when everything changed. She started whispering that I was infertile, and to my shock, my own wife began supporting these claims instead of defending me. Before diving into this painful journey, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. The day I met Jessica remains crystal clear in my memory. We bumped into each other at a tech conference in Seattle while reaching for the same coffee. She spilled hers on my shirt, and her embarrassed smile made me forget all about the stain. I asked for her number instead of an apology, and surprisingly, she gave it to me. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Jessica wore a blue dress that matched her eyes perfectly. We talked for hours about everything from our careers to childhood dreams. I learned she was a kindergarten teacher who loved children and wanted a big family someday. I shared my passion for developing software that made everyday life easier for people. After 3 months of dating, I knew she was the one. We complemented each other perfectly. Where I was analytical and sometimes too focused on details, she was spontaneous and brought color to my structured world. Our relationship progressed naturally, and after a year, I proposed at that same Italian restaurant where we had our first date. The joy in her eyes when she said yes made me feel like the luckiest man alive. We planned a small wedding with just close friends and family. Jessica looked radiant walking down the aisle with her father, David. He was a kind, gentle man who welcomed me into their family with open arms. During his toast, he told everyone how happy he was to see his daughter find someone who clearly adored her. Margaret, my mother-in-law, seemed pleasant enough back then, though somewhat reserved compared to her husband. Our early marriage was blissful. We bought a cozy house in a suburban neighborhood with good schools nearby. Jessica continued teaching kindergarten, while I received a promotion at my software company. Weekends were spent fixing up our home, visiting friends, or simply enjoying each other's company. After 2 years of marriage, we decided it was time to start trying for a baby. The first few months were exciting. Jessica downloaded fertility apps and tracked her cycle meticulously. We made love with renewed purpose, imagining the family we would create together. I could almost see our future children playing in the backyard. Jessica would often talk about how she would decorate the nursery or which names she liked. We were full of hope and anticipation. As 6 months passed without success, Jessica started to worry. She spent hours researching natural fertility methods online. Our bathroom cabinet filled with various supplements promising to boost reproductive health. We adjusted our diets, cutting out processed foods and alcohol. Jessica started practicing yoga, specifically designed for fertility. I went along with everything, wanting to support her dreams of motherhood. The pressure intensified when our friends started having children. Baby showers became uncomfortable events where relatives would innocently ask when we would join the parent club. I could see the pain in Jessica's eyes with each question. After one particularly difficult gathering, I suggested we both get medical checkups to make sure everything was functioning properly. Jessica dismissed the idea, saying we just needed to be patient and let nature take its course. Then tragedy struck our family. David, Jessica's father, died suddenly from heart disease. Jessica was devastated. Margaret, now alone in the large family home, fell into deep depression. Jessica suggested her mother visit us for a few weeks to help her cope with the loss. I readily agreed, wanting to support both women through their grief. Margaret arrived with 4 suitcases, which should have been my first warning. Initially, she was quiet and kept to herself. I gave her space and tried to be understanding. Gradually, she started joining our dinner conversations, often reminiscing about David. Many of these stories centered around how sad it was that he never got to meet his grandchildren before passing away. Each time, her gaze would linger on me, just a little too long. As weeks turned into months, Margaret showed no signs of returning to her own home. Jessica seemed content with the arrangement, finding comfort in her mother's presence during this difficult time. I started noticing changes in my wife's attitude toward me. When Margaret would make comments about how David would have loved to bounce grandchildren on his knee, Jessica would look at me with something resembling resentment. One evening, while we were all watching television, Margaret casually mentioned her friend's daughter who had been trying for a baby. They discovered something was wrong with her husband, she said. Once they knew they could explore other options, and now they have beautiful twins. The way she emphasized something was wrong while looking directly at me felt intentional and uncomfortable. Jessica remained silent during this exchange. When I looked at her for support, she averted her eyes. Later that night, I asked her if she had noticed her mother's increasing comments about our childless state. Jessica brushed it off, saying I was being too sensitive, and her mother was just sad about her father. After months of subtle hints and uncomfortable comments, Margaret stopped being subtle. During Sunday dinners with extended family, she would openly question my health history. "Any infertility in your family, Hardy?" she asked once, causing a painful silence around the table. Instead of defending me, Jessica stared at her plate. The dynamic in our home changed dramatically when Jessica suggested that Margaret sell her house and move in with us permanently. "She's all alone now, and it makes financial sense," Jessica argued. Reluctantly, I agreed, hoping it would strengthen our marriage if Jessica felt supported during her grief. That decision marked the beginning of my slow exclusion from my own family. Margaret took over our guest room, but didn't stop there. She rearranged furniture without asking, replaced family photos with ones that didn't include me, and started making decisions about meals and household matters. Whenever I objected, Jessica would accuse me of being insensitive to her mother's needs. I began feeling like a guest in my own home. The comments about our childless state escalated to public discussions about my potential infertility. Margaret would casually mention to visitors how some men simply cannot father children, while looking pointedly in my direction. She shared stories about couples she knew where the husband was the problem, and how they eventually found solutions. At a neighborhood barbecue, I overheard Margaret telling our neighbor that Jessica was wasting her reproductive years because of my issues. When I confronted her later, she feigned innocence, claiming she was just concerned about her daughter's happiness. Jessica, rather than supporting me, told me I was overreacting and should be more understanding of her mother's desire for grandchildren. The most painful development was watching Jessica gradually adopt her mother's perspective. She began avoiding intimacy, making excuses about being tired or not feeling well. Our once warm relationship cooled significantly. Conversations became tense, with Jessica growing increasingly frustrated about our inability to conceive. One evening, I returned from work early and found Jessica on her laptop. Before she could close it, I glimpsed what she was researching: male infertility treatments and alternative fertilization options. When I suggested we both get medical checkups to identify any issues, Jessica refused. "The problem is definitely with you," she said flatly. "My mother had 3 children, with no problems, and women in my family have always been fertile." The real shock came one Saturday afternoon, when I returned from my morning run earlier than expected. Jessica and Margaret were in the kitchen, unaware of my presence. Their conversation froze the blood in my veins. "You need to think about your future," Margaret was saying. "You are 30, and your best years for having children are passing by. Maybe it is time to consider finding a healthier man who can give you children." I expected Jessica to defend our marriage, to reject such a suggestion outright. Instead, after a pause that felt eternal, she sighed and replied, "I have thought about that too. But what would people say?" I left the house without letting them know I had overheard. I drove aimlessly for hours trying to process this betrayal. The woman I had loved and supported was actually considering leaving me, or worse, being unfaithful, simply because she believed I could not father children, without any medical confirmation of this fact. When I returned home that evening, I pretended everything was normal, but something fundamental had broken inside me. I started noticing strange looks from mutual friends. Conversations would stop abruptly when I entered rooms. At work, a colleague awkwardly asked about adoption, options for couples with fertility issues. I realized with horror that Margaret had been spreading rumors about my supposed infertility throughout our social circle. I felt completely alone. The 2 people I should have been able to trust were actively undermining me. My work suffered as I struggled to concentrate. I lost weight and had trouble sleeping. The constant stress and humiliation were affecting my health, yet I saw no way out of this situation without destroying the marriage I had once treasured. Then came an unexpected moment of connection. While getting coffee at a shop far from our neighborhood where I had started going to avoid acquaintances, I bumped into Sophie, Jessica's cousin. I had always liked Sophie for her straightforward nature, but we had never spent much time together at family gatherings. "Hardy," she said with genuine warmth. "You look terrible. Is everything okay?" Something about her sincere concern broke through my defenses. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything about the situation with Jessica and Margaret. Instead of the judgment or disbelief I had come to expect, Sophie listened attentively and then shocked me with her response. "I am not surprised," she said quietly. "Aunt Margaret did something similar to Uncle David years ago when they struggled to have Jessica. She convinced everyone he was the problem until medical tests proved otherwise." Sophie revealed she was going through her own divorce after discovering her husband's infidelity. We spent hours talking, sharing our pain and confusion. For the first time in months, I felt understood rather than judged. This unexpected alliance gave me strength to face what was coming next. The turning point came during a birthday party Margaret hosted for herself at our house. She invited all extended family members and neighborhood friends. I attended reluctantly, hoping to avoid creating more tension with Jessica, who had been increasingly cold toward me. During dinner, Margaret stood to make a toast. What started as reflections on her life quickly turned into an ambush. "As I enter this new year of my life," she said, glass raised, "my only sadness is not having grandchildren to share it with." Her gaze fixed directly on me. "Some of you know that Jessica and my son-in-law have been trying without success. It is such a shame when a woman as nurturing as my daughter is denied motherhood because of circumstances beyond her control." The implication was clear to everyone present. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table, as guests avoided looking at me. I waited for Jessica to say something, anything to defend our marriage, or at least acknowledge that no medical diagnosis had confirmed Margaret's insinuations. Instead, Jessica stood and joined her mother. "Mom and I have been discussing options," she announced to the stunned gathering. "There are alternatives for women in my situation, from sperm donors to other methods that could help me become a mother despite our challenges." The room spun around me. My wife had just publicly declared her intention to seek another man's genetic material to have children, all based on an assumption that I was infertile. The looks of pity from our friends and family became unbearable. I placed my napkin on the table, stood without a word, and walked out of my own home, unable to endure another moment of humiliation. Jessica found me at a hotel the next morning. Rather than apologizing, she was furious that I had embarrassed her by leaving. When I confronted her about her announcement, she became defensive. "What did you expect me to do? Sit around forever, waiting for something that is never going to happen? Mom is right. We need to look at alternatives." "Have you ever considered that you might be the one with fertility issues?" I asked. "Or that maybe we both need to be checked before making assumptions?" Her response shattered any remaining hope for our marriage. "Mom had 3 children, easily. The problem is obviously with you. And frankly, we have been discussing other options. I could find someone else to help me get pregnant. You would still be the father on paper. Nobody would have to know." I stared at my wife in disbelief. The woman I had loved and trusted was suggesting deliberate infidelity as a solution to our fertility struggles. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over, but I also needed to know the truth about my fertility. The next day, I scheduled an appointment at a reputable fertility clinic. The process was thorough and somewhat embarrassing, but I needed answers. After multiple tests and an anxious waiting period, the doctor called me into his office with the results. "Mr. Hardy, I have reviewed all your tests," he said, looking at my file. "Your sperm count, motility, and all other fertility markers are completely normal. There is absolutely nothing in these results suggesting you would have any difficulty fathering children." A wave of emotions washed over me. Relief that there was nothing wrong with me medically, and rage that I had been vilified without cause. I took the medical report and drove home, determined to confront Jessica and Margaret with evidence. When I presented them with the medical results, their reaction told me everything I needed to know about our future. "You probably bribed the doctor," Margaret scoffed. "Or they made a mistake. Men in their 30s often have fertility problems." Jessica grabbed the papers from my hand. "This cannot be right. We have been trying for over a year with no success. If it is not you, then—" She trailed off, seemingly unwilling to consider her own fertility might be the issue. "Then maybe you should get tested too," I suggested. "Or maybe the problem has been the stress and hostility in this house for the past year." Margaret stepped between us. "Jessica does not need tests. Our family has never had fertility problems. You need to accept the truth and stop preventing my daughter from finding happiness." The argument escalated until I finally said the words I had been holding back. "I want a divorce. I cannot stay in a marriage with someone who would betray me this way and allow her mother to humiliate me publicly based on unfounded assumptions." Jessica's face paled. I do not think she ever expected me to leave. Perhaps she thought I was too devoted to her to walk away regardless of how I was treated. Margaret immediately began talking about how I would still need to support Jessica financially, assuming I would be the one moving out of our home. I contacted Sophie that evening, needing someone to talk to about my decision. She listened compassionately and then offered practical advice from her own divorce experience, recommending a good lawyer who had helped her. Over the following weeks, as divorce proceedings began, Sophie became my rock. She understood the pain of betrayal and never judged my complex emotions as I grieved the end of my marriage. The divorce process was even more challenging than I anticipated. Margaret and Jessica spread rumors about me throughout our community, claiming I was abandoning Jessica because I could not face my inadequacy. I chose to remain silent, letting my lawyer handle all communications. Taking the high road was difficult but necessary for my mental health. During this painful period, I focused on healing. I sought counseling to process the betrayal and rebuilding my self-confidence. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, and was surprised to discover many had never believed the rumors. Several confided they had always found Margaret manipulative and had witnessed her gradually changing Jessica over the years. Sophie and I continued meeting regularly for coffee. Our shared experience of betrayal created a unique bond between us. We understood each other's pain without explanation. When she mentioned a job opportunity in her field that would require relocating to my city, I helped her find an apartment and settle in. Our friendship evolved naturally over time. I found myself looking forward to our meetings, appreciating her straightforward nature and genuine kindness. Unlike Jessica, Sophie never tried to change me or make me feel inadequate. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I realized I had developed feelings for her beyond friendship. I hesitated to act on these feelings, concerned about complicating our friendship and the potential family drama it might cause. Sophie sensed my reservation and, true to her direct nature, addressed it head-on during one of our hikes. "I know you feel it too, Hardy," she said, as we rested at a scenic overlook. "There is something between us, and we have both been dancing around it for weeks. Are you afraid of what Jessica and Margaret might say?" Her honesty was refreshing after years of manipulation and indirect communication. "Partly," I admitted, "but mostly I am scared of losing what we have. Your friendship saved me during the darkest period of my life." Sophie took my hand. "Some risks are worth taking. I think we could have something beautiful if we are brave enough to try." Our first kiss happened there on the mountain, with the valley spread out below us like a promise of new beginnings. Dating Sophie felt entirely different from my relationship with Jessica. There was no manipulation, no hidden agendas, just two people genuinely enjoying each other's company and supporting each other's growth. When word of our relationship reached the extended family, the reaction was predictably dramatic. Jessica was furious, calling Sophie a traitor. Margaret spread new rumors about how we must have been having an affair during my marriage. Some family members took their side without question. Sophie faced this pressure with remarkable courage. At a family gathering we both attended, she stood up to Margaret directly when the older woman began making insinuations about our relationship. "Enough, Aunt Margaret," Sophie said firmly. "I have watched you manipulate and spread lies for years. Hardy is a good man who was mistreated based on assumptions that proved to be false. I will not let you rewrite history or damage his reputation further. Her public defense shocked the family into silence. Some relatives began questioning the narrative they had accepted, especially when Sophie mentioned Hardy's clean medical report. A few even approached me privately to apologize for believing the rumors without evidence. Sophie's unwavering support and courage made me fall even deeper in love with her. 6 months into our relationship, during another hike to our special overlook, I proposed. Her joyful acceptance and the tears in her eyes told me everything I needed to know about our future together. We planned a small, intimate wedding with only supportive friends and family members in attendance. The ceremony was everything. Our relationship had been honest, warm, and without pretense. As we exchanged vows, I marveled at how my painful past had led me to this unexpected happiness. 3 months after our wedding, Sophie shared news that left me speechless. She was pregnant. The fertility tests confirmed what we hardly dared to hope: we were expecting twins. The irony of the situation was not lost on me. After being branded infertile and inadequate, I was going to be a father to not 1 but 2 children. When news of Sophie's pregnancy reached Jessica and Margaret, their reactions revealed much about their characters. Jessica called me crying, saying she had made a terrible mistake and asking if we could try again. I gently but firmly told her that chapter of my life was closed. Margaret tried to suggest the twins could not possibly be mine, but her accusations fell flat, as more family members had learned the truth about my fertility test results. The day our twins were born was the most profound experience of my life. Holding my son and daughter for the first time, seeing their tiny features and feeling their warmth against my chest, I was overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Sophie, exhausted but radiant, watched me with our children and said, "They are perfect, just like their father." In the years since, we have built a beautiful life together. Sophie returned to her career part-time after maternity leave, while I arranged flexible working hours to be an active, present father. Our home is filled with laughter, occasional chaos, and unwavering love and respect. Looking back on my journey, I can now see how even the most painful experiences served a purpose. Had I not endured the betrayal and humiliation from Jessica and Margaret, I might never have found the courage to demand respect and honesty in my relationships. I might never have discovered the deep, authentic love I share with Sophie, or experienced the joy of being a father to our beautiful twins. Life sometimes leads us through dark valleys before revealing the mountaintop. The people we believe will stay with us forever sometimes serve only to guide us toward our true destiny. Trust may be broken, but the heart can heal and grow stronger in the mended places. Has someone in your life ever pushed you toward unexpected happiness through their unkindness? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and unexpected blessings. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads to finding what you truly need.